Okay, number 7, we have a continued discussion for stop signs at the intersection of Bayview Drive and Lakemist Drive. I believe, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, is the public hearing still open?
Yes.
I believe we left it open. Okay. So first thing, I believe, Chief, you had you had a revised memo regarding that?
Yes, since that last board meeting, I've done some research and looked at the federal standards for installing stop signs as well as some other states and their recommendations, and put together some guidelines for myself to use in the future. And instead of a three-way stop there, one of the guidelines is that anytime you have a road that intersects a thoroughfare, which would be like Bayview, which comes off the main road off the lake shore and continues around, Lakemist would be a connecting road to that thoroughfare and would qualify for a stop sign if the board chose to. That's under the federal guidelines.
Okay. We closed the public hearing at the last meeting. So. Any comments?
But we had no decision, right?
There was no decision. You're correct.
We were waiting. Chief was going to get back, wasn't it? Obviously we have.
There's been a lot of information, a lot of input over the last 2 weeks. Some of it has to do with the safety. It's our duty to make sure that what we try to do is in the best interest of the public and not at the whim of the public. I believe that is what our responsibility is. And I think all the roads up there have no control.
Correct.
All the through.
Well, it's a small area. There is
Yeah.
now a new development that connects to it, but that is a small area. There are none. But we do have areas in the town that have no stop signs. There's some sections of the town fairly large that have absolutely no stop signs. So we have no complaints from them either.
Given that, still, at that one place, it's a thoroughfare, it should, I believe, get a stop sign.
I would tend to agree with what you're presenting, though. It's not the same as the original proposal, then.
That's correct. The original proposal from the residents was a three-way stop, and I modified my recommendation based on the guidelines presented under the national guidelines, federal guidelines, that it should have it on Lakemist, which connects a thoroughfare. The thoroughfare would be Bayview.
I would make a motion to accept it as presented by the chief.
Okay. Second.
There'd be 2 signs though, instead of 1. There'd be one at each
Yeah.
end of Lakemist. That's
Right.
correct.
2 signs, right? East and west.
Correct.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Tarwacki?
Yes.
Mr. Ryback?
Yes.
Mr. Coral?
Yes.
They are north and south.
Number 8, we have a continued discussion of the footpath elimination from the Nice and Easy to Boyko Farm. At the last meeting, we had extensive discussion about this footpath, and we had input from the residents that believe this walking trail was a nuisance, since which time the matter was sent back to the planning board for their input. I don't believe the planning board minutes are available yet. However, we do have an email from Pat Leone, the chairman of the planning board, which gives kind of an update as to what generally happened. And I was just going to read that for people in the audience who were concerned with that issue. Pat's comments are that in a nutshell, the planning board was 100% behind keeping the trail in place. In fact, the florist person also said the trail should not go away. I believe they were here at the last meeting. There was discussions with the landowner, who happens to be the developer, was Michael Bragman, who said that this condition is part of the deed covenants as well. It should not go away. The biggest issue seems to appear the maintenance of it, the trash and mowing and whatnot, which needs to be discussed with the landowner. All planning board members that visited found young children and children with parents using the trail in an appropriate, respectable manner. If there's problems with vehicles, which we talked about before, obviously that should be prohibited, like golf carts, snowmobiles, etc. There was perhaps discussion and recommendation that trying to limit the trail to daytime hours, perhaps there should be lights added to that area. You have, obviously, one of the residents is totally against any idea of keeping that trail open. The florist in the area said keeping it open may not be a bad idea. However, there needs to be some better upkeep and maintenance of it. So basically, we're left in a situation where you have a property owner and the town doesn't have any easement over that or control over it. So at this point, I know, Heather, you're going to do some research also.
And frankly, our research turned up pretty much what you what you just read back there. Wayne and I were both present at the planning board meeting where this is discussed, and it appears that the town doesn't have an easement in that area, that the trail is currently under the ownership of a private landowner, and it was suggested to the residents in the area that were concerned about the trail at the meeting that perhaps they should try to work with the property owner to determine what's, in the best interest of upkeeping and maintaining the trail. The planning board also mentioned that when the portion of the area that's zoned neighborhood commercial gets developed, that the planning board will probably look again at the issue, maybe improvements like you read in Pat's email about potentially lighting, that sort of thing. Wayne and I did sort of come to the conclusion that it is a planning board issue. It's a planning board jurisdiction over the site plan and subdivision in that area. And this board did the right thing by asking the planning board to review it. And the planning board has basically come back and say that they think that the walking trail is of value and do not want to see it eliminated.
They also feel that putting a fence up or restricting that trail, closing it off, is only going to it's going to compound the problem, and people are just going to walk across the lawns or find another place to cut through. So.
Any other comments by board members about this issue?
It's my understanding that they're anticipating another bite of the apple down the road by the developer, and at that time, obviously, they're going to make some demands on the developer with that path in mind, right?
Yes, they are. Yes.
The planning board?
The planning board. Yeah.
Possible that at that time they'll ask them to put in lights?
Yes. Or do something else. So.
Modify the trail.
Modify the trail.
Put up, keep off vehicle
yes,
traffic.
Put a bollards to keep out snowmobiles or whatever.
And we're talking about the buildings or the semi-commercial
Right. Behind the nice
portion
and easy.
behind the nice and easy.
Between there and the houses. There's 2 or 3 buildings planned.
Yeah.
I think even if the developer wanted to close the trail, they couldn't because it'd be in violation of the planning board's requirement, part of their site plan approval that they gave.
Right.
So we're in a catch-22 here with the planning board. So.
Excuse me, can I
Yeah.
just say one thing? Because of the, I think, severe concerns that they had brought at that public hearing, is someone going to contact the individuals that spoke at the last meeting and let them aware of
Well,
what's
they
going on?
they were at the planning board meeting,
Excellent.
so they should be aware of that issue as of what was discussed there.
As to where we are. Okay. Any other discussion on that issue?